Hello, and welcome to Attract and Stand Out Brand Building Virtual Summit. I'm your host, Darlene Holly. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a personal branding and business clarity coach, and I help ambitious, heart-centered online entrepreneurs, and I work with them to create a successful personal brand and business by helping them build a solid foundation so they can share their message with the world, attract dream clients, and make money doing what they love. This year's summit is all about building a profitable personal brand and business that allows you to authentically show up and connect with your audience. I'm so excited to feature so many amazing business owners and share their powerful stories with you. Today's guest is amazing and you're going to love her. I am interviewing Jackie Dominas, who is a women's empowerment coach and yoga teacher that helps ambitious, big-hearted women just like me that are exhausted and overwhelmed by the stress of their busy lives. She helps them find a better way of living in a way that works for them. Before launching her life coaching practice, Jackie spent 15 years working as a dietitian and personal trainer, helping women who wanted to lose weight and feel healthier because they thought if they did, their life would magically become easier. I'm so excited to have you with us today, Jackie. Thank you for being a part of the summit. Welcome. How are you?
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Darlene. Very good. Doing great.
Awesome. So I want to know all things Jackie. Tell us a little bit about you and how you started your business and how you came to what type of coaching you are doing today.
Okay. Oh, great. So, with what you'd shared, I was a dietitian and a personal trainer for years, and I knew working with clients and I had some own health issues going on. And I was really focused on just the aesthetic of the body, or really trying to get the body to be healthier. But I saw with my clients, they maybe achieve their goal, but when they would stop working with me, then they would fall back off. And so I look at it and I'm like using my hands as like the tip of the iceberg, getting your body healthy and moving your body and eating is part of the piece. But then there's this bottom iceberg of the reasons that we do the things that we do that is so important. So I found that when I started to work with clients around building the life that they want to live, the weight magically went away and their health also improved. And I saw this with my own body and my own life. So if their lives were out of alignment, I work with them to come back into alignment with what their heart truly desires. And then their health improves, their energy improves, they're taking better care of themselves, their relationships improve. It's really amazing to see.
Yeah, and I love how all those pieces pull together to help women just show up as their true selves and not have to worry about, I think we worry so much about like what people are going to think about us and what we look like and, maybe our weight's fluctuating and, we need that extra love and help to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves in the right way. So I love that you help women embrace all of who they are so that they can show up exactly as they are.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about the work that you do today. So how has your business kind of pivoted and transitioned over the years?
Okay, so from when I was working as a dietitian and then a personal trainer, and then I dove into the yoga world. And I remember being in a yoga class and my teacher mentioned the moon, and I was fresh out of college at the time, but I was really curious about it. So it wouldn't be for 5 or so more years that I had my own infertility problems and struggles, and really dove into the world of women's health, that I found out that the moon mimics our own menstrual cycle, and then also how to use the moon as a productivity tool and a self-care tool. And my world was blown. It's things that we were never taught in school or even from our mothers or our grandmothers about how we are as women. And ever since I jumped on this jet stream of using like Mother Nature as a guide in my own inner guidance system, and that's what I help women do, things have never been the same. It's been wonderful.
That's amazing. So tell me a little bit more about this, because this is something that I've only recently started learning about. So I don't know a ton about like how we use this tool, like as women, to make sure that we're showing up at the right time to be productive or to make sure we're planning things. So like if we're on a super low energy day versus like the days where we're super high energy, like how does the cycle and our the moon and all that play a big part in that?
Okay, great. It's such a great question, and I love jamming about this stuff. So, So the moon and the sun. So the sun is pretty predictable. It's like, I talk about like masculine and feminine energy. Both, if you're a male or female, you have these both. But in terms of like the sun, masculine energy is very linear. It's a doer. It's pretty predictable. It rises about the same time every day, sets about the same time every day. And then we have the moon, which it shifts in terms of how the sun is shining on it. So it changes. The phases of the moon changes every day. And that's, as women, we are connected to the moon. And that's how there's 4 phases. There's 4 to 8 phases, depending on who's teaching you about the moon. And then in our own personal cycle, there's 4 phases to our menstrual cycle. So, and I can break these down in really like moon 101, menstrual cycle 101, if you want, and how it will relate to your productivity and your.
Let's do that, because I feel like it would be super valuable. Most of us are running these businesses and we're not I'm not utilizing, like, this is a tool for me for how to like make sure I'm working on the right projects at the right time. So I would definitely love to see how it breaks down so we can use it in like the day-to-day.
Great. Okay. So great. So with that, like, there's the balance of the two, kind of like if you think of the yin yang symbol. Okay. So like, even just to go back to like talking about how the sun is very predictable, very linear. Now the feminine side is very fluid and can see the big picture, and it's creative. But if you are pushed, and this is what I find with my clients and in my own business, I pushed and pushed and pushed and never gave myself a chance to come back in and reflect and restore. And then I burnt out, or like emotions come out sideways. So here's the 4 phases and how it can help remind you of like, okay, here's a time where I'm supposed to push. Here's a time where I'm supposed to pull back. So the first phase, so day 1 of your period is the same as the new moon. So the moon is in the sky. It's pretty dark. And this is before we had electronics, and if your cycle doesn't match up with the moon, like, it's totally okay. You know, we're in modern life now. So this is back before we had all this like extra light in our lives. But so if we think of it this way, so the first phase being your bleed time. So the bleed time is also like winter. So it's a time to hibernate, to come in. The energy is lower. It's a reflective time. And then the first day of your cycle, so day 1 of your cycle, some women have more fatigue. They don't necessarily want to be out doing like a lot of exercise or even be doing like a summit presentation. Your energy might be inward, and that is totally okay. This is a time in your body where you're hormonally and biologically wired that your right and your left brain are connected to each other. So doing some journaling about what you want to bring into your life or let go of, this is the time to do it. This is the time to set a goal for the month and to write it down, to have it. And that's the same thing so say you don't have a menstrual cycle, whether it be like you're in menopause or you are breastfeeding, or if you're pregnant, or any of the other reasons that we don't cycle, you can track the moon the same way. So on a new moon, put an intention down. So this is part of that productivity. And then, so that lasts about, for women in terms of their menstrual cycle, it lasts anywhere between like 3 or 4 days to 7 days.
Yeah.
Okay? And then the second phase of the moon and with our cycle is the follicular phase, which is also like springtime. So I'll associate these with like the seasons, which can be helpful. So if you think about the seasons, spring is a lot of energy, like a lot of ideas can come along with this. We see the first little bit of a plant coming up. We get like super excited. This is in terms of your creativity with your business, the time to like put pen on paper, to do blog posts, to really, to take some action. It's an action doing phase. And then we move into the ovulation phase, which is also like summer and the full moon in the sky. So we just had a full moon on Tuesday, like when we're taping this interview, and it's the time to really be out there and connect with people. So this would be like the perfect time to be having the conversation that we're having, to be doing a workshop, to launch a program. This is when you're feeling like the most at home in your body, for a lot of women, the most type of energy during the ovulation phase of their cycle. And then in terms of productivity, the full moon, you look back at your new moon intention and see, am I actually taking the steps to make that come to life, like to bring it into fruition? So it's a check-in point, the new moon and then the full moon. And then we move into the luteal phase, or the fall phase of our cycle, which is also the waning moon phase. And this is a time at the beginning, it's that back to school energy. It's a great time to like edit blog posts or finish up projects. We really want to like declutter and organize. This is a great time to do your bookkeeping, really pull things together and finish it off, like tie a bow on it at the first part of this phase. And then at the second part of the phase is when it gets darker in the sky, the moon's coming back to like being the darkest, the sun's away from it, and a time to really come inward and to slow down and to rest a little bit more and to not push. So this wouldn't be a great time for like a launch or being out there or anything like that.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I love how you broke it down by like the 4 seasons. So it's super, excuse me, easy for us to like visualize how this would come into play for us. So if we're not using this, how would we start to use this in our business? Excuse me.
Sure.
What would be a good way to like implement putting this into maybe the practices that we already have going?
Great. So what I would recommend is you can get I think it's called La Luna. I want to tell you the right name of the app, but there's an app that you can get that's free online, and you can just start tracking the moon. So you can look up in the sky and kind of see where the moon is, but it's nice to know like, okay, on this date is going to be the new moon. So I would recommend, if I can't find it real quick, I can send it to you.
That's fine. Yeah, you can add up the link.
So I would look at when the new moon is, and then get your journal out and write, okay, this is what I want to bring to life. And then this next moon cycle, which something I forgot to mention, which is so super cool, is that the moon cycle and our menstrual cycle, the typical woman has a menstrual cycle 28 days, around 28 days. That's how long it takes the moon to go through these phases as well. So at the new moon, you set your intention. What do I want to bring into life? What do I want to do in my business? Or I like to like pick a word. So my word of this, and I call it moon, with like using the word moon instead of month, is joy. So how I brought this into my business is when I'm writing content to my clients, or when I'm like producing something or doing social media posts or saying yes or no to things, is it going to bring me joy? And how is that going to lead into my business? So then I check in at the waxing quarter moon, is like the midway point. It's 1 week after the new moon. And I say, okay, am I aligned with what I said I was going to be doing? And then the same thing with the full moon. And then I hit the full moon and I ask, okay, what am I doing to build? And then is there anything that's getting in the way of me moving forward? Something that I need to release and let go of, or pivot, or stay on course? And then the same thing moving into the last phase of the cycle. So 1 week from that, moving into like tying up loose ends, and then even evaluating. So say you did a project and you're like, what worked, what didn't work? Or what worked in terms of the systems that I have in play in my business, or that are like, if you go in my example, like, is that leading me joy? Like, do I need to hire a virtual assistant? Or that's the time to do it in your luteal phase, or the last quarter phase, the waning quarter moon, and then complete the cycle. So right before we go into like the new moon, you can really reflect on the last moon cycle and see, did you do what you wanted to do? And if not, you can course correct, and you got the next month. So I like, it's like really, there's structure, which is like a masculine energy. Like there's structure to creating our goals and our intentions that allows the creativity and the flow to happen.
Okay. That makes sense. And I'm thinking, like, I like to batch schedule. I like to like schedule out my time so that I'm working on certain projects at certain times, but I've never really correlated that with my moon cycle or my cycle. So I could see how that would be like, if I'm looking long-term ahead, like we'll use the summit as an example, like I have no idea where that is in like my moon phase. But knowing that, like, as you're planning out, to make sure you have the right kind of energy to show up. If you're not like, and I like how you said, like, during like the darker months or the week, like during your cycle, or whatnot at the darker part of the moon, that you're like, you'll know that about yourself, that you want to be a little bit more inward. Maybe you want to have more days where you're snuggled up on the couch, versus, being out at a networking event and making connections and utilizing that, so that as you're showing up, if you're finding, like, if it's a dark week for yourself and you have a big networking event and you're struggling to go to that event, like, you can use that tool to be like, well, this is probably why I'm not as excited to show up, and what can I do to make myself show up in a different light, versus, harping on yourself or beating yourself up because you're like, oh, I don't want to go to this event, but I have to, I've already committed. But like, knowing that it's going to be coming, so that you can do things to put yourself in the right mindset or position for that. I like how you would use that.
Yes. And it's not even giving yourself a pass. It's just this whole process of, just like any of the other typologies that we do to learn more about ourselves. This allows us to, like, really, this is our body. It's something that's with us about our whole lives. It's the biggest relationship that you're going to have. So it's like learning about your body and how you work. So you're not like you said, that inner critic, you didn't use that exact word, but that can really creep around in that luteal phase of the last week of your cycle. And it could be like, well, why am my energy's down? What's wrong with me? No, nothing is wrong with you. You are not broken. This is how it's supposed to work. You are supposed to come inward and reflect. And if you give yourself that time, when the new moon comes, so sometimes, here's an example. Something will come up, and the decision doesn't need to be made today. I have a little time to work on it, or I'm trying to, I'm getting at a sticky point in my business and I want to make a decision. So, but I know that I'm going to start my cycle in 4 days. I don't make any decisions. I just am like, I'm going to see what comes to me. So a meditation practice is really helpful, or getting out in nature, or doing something that allows you to get out of your head and into your body. And then when you're out of that, kind of, the PMS phase of your cycle, sometimes people call it, I just say, all those symptoms, it's like your stuff's coming up, like your body and your emotions are telling you what's not working. So you can read through that and clear that out. So the next moon cycle happens, and you can, ideas come if you give yourself that chance to rest before. It's pretty incredible. Yeah.
That's awesome. So what would be a tip that you would give to somebody if they wanted to start using this, as they're looking at a 2020 and scheduling out their year, and they want to make sure that they start using this to guide them for when to show up and how to do their tasks in a different way? What are some beginning ways? Because life happens, right? We all have busy schedules. Some of us are moms, some of us are dads, some of us are just busy human beings. We're volunteering, we're doing all the things. How do we start to create a schedule and a life that can move more around using this productivity tool?
Sure. So there's two things that came to mind when you were asking that question. So one is the great news is, say in 2020, look at the moon calendar and see when the first new moon is, and then carve out anywhere between 10 minutes to 30 minutes. I'm all about making it non-fussy. You can go real ritual with this, real woo with it, or you can just be really practical, light a candle, take a couple deep breaths, try to get into your body and get clear, and then just see if there's an intention, a word, or a project that comes to mind that you want to focus on for that month. And then track the moon cycle, and then go back to checking in with am I taking action for that? And am I giving myself the rest that I need at the certain phases to really move the needle forward? And then, so say you fall off course. The great thing is there's going to be a next moon cycle that starts again within the next couple of weeks. So you can just try it again. So just really committing to that monthly practice of setting intentions, following up with it, checking in with your body on that weekly basis, and going off of the seasons and feeling into okay, this is the energy of that week. And it's okay for me to be feeling the way that I'm feeling. And I'm going to capitalize on the gifts of each one of the phases.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I like how you broke that down too, because you don't have to try it one time and know it's going to work. You can try it for January or for February. And when the new moon comes, you try it again. And at each time, I'm assuming as you start to do it, you start to learn and notice new things about yourself, and you can slowly start to implement them and add them into your routine. It doesn't have to be like this big, huge, like change for how you do everything in life. It can be like slowly built up with small changes each month as you notice something new and you start to, because we don't know what we don't know. And as we start to recognize these things, we can start to slowly implement them into our business and into our personal life and use that as a tool just for how we want to show up and how we want to put ourselves out there and what we want to be working on.
Yes. And just experiment. I find especially with ambitious women, we like to like understand and we get really analytical about it and we want to like know all the details. That's where the challenge is, because it's this part of like letting in this, like really being curious about how this is going to work. And there is some structure to it because you have those 4 phases that you're looking at, but then allowing the flow to come in, and it's okay that you don't completely understand. Or like I mentioned before, if your cycle doesn't line up with the moon, totally okay. So if that's the case, for example, just for those of you listening, what I recommend is still setting your intention at the new moon and the check-in points at the quarter moon and the full moon and the other quarter moon. So that's in terms of like structuring your business. But then with your own personal energy, look into the tasks that are associated with your own personal cycle. So I like taking a journal and saying, okay, I'm on day 1 of my cycle, but it's a full moon, for example. So for me, I know that's still a time to come inward, but then the full moon illuminates like your emotions and things that you want to get rid of too. So I'm able to journal about that and say, I'm going to clear the stage at the full moon. And then I'm going to have my right and my left brain really working together so I can get some clarity if I sit and meditate. I don't know if that made sense, or that might be like 102 of the.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, because I'm glad you brought that up, because I was thinking that when you were talking a little bit earlier. Like, I wonder how many women their cycle and the moon cycle are completely opposite, and like how you would align that. So I like that you're using both in that case. So if your cycle's not aligned with the new moon cycle, then you would just kind of utilize both and give yourself space to understand that, I don't know, I guess that you're like in different places, but your intentions are being set and you're still focused on the goal to get yourself there. If that makes sense.
Yes. It makes total sense. And that's why it's like the practice of journaling and tracking it. And what the super cool thing about it is that I've noticed this with my own body, is that I've spent like some moon bathing. Like, this is a self-care tool. So for those of you who are interested in trying to align your cycle up with the moon, if you're still cycling, you can go outside and spend just 10 minutes with the moon every evening and saying, I'm not going to go to my cell phone or be on my computer after the sun goes down, and do that for a couple months. And you might notice that your cycle starts to line up with the moon. Like, I was like, I tried it and it worked. It was pretty incredible. It was really cool to see.
That's awesome. Because I can definitely see how like these tools were, I guess they were always here, but like back in the days before we had technology and computers and phones and all these different tech items that are lighting us up, and like they're changing how our body reacts to things. I can see how it's back to the caveman days for how they could do things versus now where we're distracted and we have so many, the green lights from our phone and like all those things that keep us awake. I can see how that would play a part in that as well.
Yeah. And it pulls us away from checking in with ourselves. So that inner guidance system, that inner like whisper from I say it's like your soul, or like that wisdom that's inside of you, because we can get so distracted with like our to-do lists, our schedules, they overwhelm, like the things with the kids, the things with growing your business, the newsletters that come in that we like have the best expectations of wanting to read. All of that stuff pulls us away from our own like inner knowing of like really getting quiet and checking in with yourself. Like, okay, how do I feel? Where am I in my cycle? Am I pushing myself way too much? Because the thing is if you push yourself way too much, you're not going to be able to give to your clients. You're going to end up getting burnt out, and then you're not going to build the business that you want to build.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Can you tell us a little bit about how you use this with your business? Like, how do you help your clients use this as one of their tools to grow their businesses?
Okay. Yeah. When I first meet with a client, we check in on how their energy is and their mindset around their need to produce or achieve or push, and checking in with their own boundaries with themselves. So I look at self-care like manicures, pedicures, massages, those things, but like the real big stuff is the boundaries that we have with saying how long we're going to be on Instagram, for example, or saying no to networking events that are not in alignment or don't light you up, or we get really clear on that. And that comes into like playing a piece with the moon, saying like, I find that sometimes I like to go to networking events and sometimes I don't. And then I say, well, do you know where you are in your cycle? And then a lot of the times they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was trying to book all of these events or push myself at a time that wasn't the best for me. And then, so we work together a couple different ways, but when we work together I love working with people for at least 3 months. So then we're able to go through 3 moon cycles, and then I lead them through some guided meditations to bring up what their intention is for that month, and then work with them as they get through some sticky points, because there's also some things that come up when we're trying to make change or trying to like stick to the anchor that we set at the beginning of the month. So what's coming up to try to distract us, because what we're used to doing, it's just new habits along the way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I know I've learned so much just from talking with you today, and I know that our audience is going to have some new woo tips and tools that they're going to be able to implement. And so if I know that you have a free gift for us, tell us a little bit about this free gift that will help us learn more about this.
Sure. So I have a Calm the Crazy toolkit. So it comes with 5 different practices that just take about 5 to 10 minutes that give you this opportunity to come back to a really calm, steady space, to be able to like draw up your new moon intentions, or to get grounded when you're feeling very spacey and you have a bunch of different ideas, but you need to like come back to whether it be the anchor of the new moon or whether it just be to a really calm place that brings the overwhelm that can happen when we're growing our businesses down. So that's what's in the toolkit. There's just 5 simple practices in there, and they're the same practices that I use to stay really productive, but also calm in the same time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And people want to connect with you. I know they're going to want to reach out and learn more about you. Where do you like to spend your time at?
Sure. Instagram's my favorite place to connect with everyone. And then I have a blog and love to be able to email everyone back and forth and to support and keep this conversation going. But that's my favorite. And then my website's just JackieDominas.com. And then you can find the blog on there. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us for the summit and sharing all of these tips that a lot of us, I feel like are going to be new to, or at least maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just new to it, but I feel like it's something that can benefit so many women. And it's something that a lot of women, at least clients that I know that I've worked with, we've never talked about this before. So they might be using it, but I've never heard it come up. And I feel like the more like we're learning as time goes on, so much more about different ways that we can grow our businesses by really tuning in and connecting to who we are as a person. And I love that we can use our cycle as just another added tool in our toolbox to make sure that we're checking in with ourselves and doing things the right way and not pushing ourselves when we shouldn't be. And knowing also like when we can push ourselves a little bit more because maybe we have that extra energy to get through that task. So thank you so much for being a guest and sharing all of this with us. I know a lot of people are going to be following up to learn more about how they can implement this in their businesses.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.